Again, Dr. Kim, thank you for taking the time to be part of the summer speaker series. We do appreciate you being here with us today.
Of course, my pleasure. Always happy to talk to prospective future physicians and healthcare professionals of the future. And I understand today we are here to talk about sort of leadership and how that incorporates into the whole application admission process for medical school. Just in case we do have individuals who are interested in other health professions, but I do want to reward these three individuals for making the time to be here with me, at least synchronously. So students that are here, go ahead and use the chat to just share with me what health profession you are currently interested in. And again, I say currently interested because very often students do change their mind. And I think that's just being very realistic. So go ahead, it looks like Kieran and Ashwin and Beatrice, go ahead and use the chat feature and just type in there for me which health profession you are currently pursuing. So is it medical school, pharmacy school, dental school? Do you really want me to list all 20? No, there's more than 20 health professions. So medical school, all right, Kieran, very good. Med school from Ashwin as well. And based upon those two data points, I'm going to extrapolate and go with medical school for Beatrice too. Beatrice, if I am wrong, please go ahead and correct me. But for the purposes of our time together, MBS, okay, fantastic. So you're interested in the business and science of MBS. Now, is it because you're interested in pursuing a career in the life science industry? Is that correct? But you're open to different programs. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, look at that.
I can actually, I'm here. I'm driving. I just picked up my kids from Grandma and Grandpa's office. Or I'm sorry, Grandma and Grandpa's home.
No worries. You can definitely do what you need to do. Be safe and drive. And I see some.
I pulled over. It's easier this way. But I just want to add, so I did apply to the MBS program. I contemplated going to medical school, or at least a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, is a physician's assistant.
Yep.
And she's spoken highly about it. But more than anything else, I am just kind of keeping my feelers out there.
Perfect.
Currently, the goal is program or project management for a biotech or a pharmaceutical company, but that may change. We'll see.
Okay, got it. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna really try to tailor this time and our talk together to help at least the three of you, and then those who are watching, hopefully you can benefit as well. So
I'm going to mute and turn off the video now, and then I will rejoin as soon as I get home.
Totally understand.
Thank you. Bye.
Multitasking. That's one of the qualities and skills that one needs if considering a career in health profession. There's so many things going on, and of course we don't need to talk about pandemic and how that's changed the industry. So but again, I really want to use this time to really benefit the three of you as well as the people who are watching, and really look back and say, that was the best hour of my, that whole day. And so that's nothing short of the goal that I'm going to put on myself. So the best way to achieve that goal is to get to know you as much as I can, so I can tailor, personalize this time and this information to each of you. So Kieran, you want to go ahead and just share a brief introduction about where you are in your education and what your interests might be, and anything else that you would like to share with me and the rest of us, so I can kind of tailor this session for you.
Yeah, so I go to the University of Nevada, Reno. I'm entering my junior year of undergrad. My major is biotechnology. I've always had like a strong interest in genetics. So I've recently learned about like the genetics residency program that you can do as like in med school.
Okay.
So that's piqued my interest, but I've always considered like genetic counseling like a career that I think would be cool. But yeah, that's it. I like to play guitar and rock climb.
Love it. That's fantastic. Now, are you a resident of Nevada?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, that's very relevant, because I'll talk about that, when we talk about medical school in general. But your introduction was really good because there was enough in there for me to keep in mind as we go about this session together. So thank you for that. How about you, Ashwin?
Okay, hi, my name is Ashwin. I actually just graduated from the University of California, Santa Barbara with a degree in biology, and I'll be joining KGI for their MS-PhD program in the fall. I'm mainly interested in neurobiology, and one sort of overarching question that I want to keep in mind probably throughout this discussion is, how can I use my time at KGI to enhance my leadership opportunities?
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm going to try to be as objective as possible here for everyone watching. Ashwin obviously is an incoming student, which means that I'll be working very closely with him. And so if I spend 90% of the time just helping Ashwin in this section, my apologies, that's a joke. I'll have plenty of time to work with him. But really, thank you all for sharing a little bit about each of you. And I know that Beatrice is currently driving safely to home, and then she'll be joining us later with the camera. And Lily, I see Lily just popped in. My goodness, she just snuck right in and sat in the back of the virtual Zoom room. Lily, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic. Now, are you able to turn your camera on?
I can try, but if I have network error or issues, may I turn it off? Yeah, because I have some connectivity. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Yeah, you're not the only one. There's others who are limited by the bandwidth of their Wi-Fi connection. So, but while you are working on that, we're going to ask you to multitask and see if you might be able to share with us a little bit about yourself, what educational background, and more importantly, what sort of future direction you're interested in.
My educational background, I went to school at UC San Diego. I studied molecular biology and world literature. I've also taken up a applied bioinformatics certificate program at UC San Diego Extension as well. And I've been working as a teaching assistant for one of the classes.
Got it. Okay.
And so right now I'm trying to figure out, I guess my next steps of if I wanted to go to grad program in bioinformatics or what my other options out there. I don't want a career working behind the bench, so I'm just trying to figure out what else I can do or what to do next.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So you don't want a research career. You want more of, do you want a clinical career? Is it safe to say clinical career?
Yeah, I would think so, yes.
You're open to, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna try to make this wide and kind of broad, but at the same time, I also do want to directly go over topics and things that are going to be directly relevant to each of you. So a bit of a challenge, but I'm always up for a challenge. So let's begin. So why college? Why have all of you gone on to undergraduate education? Some of you are still in it. Some of you have graduated, but why did you all go to college? And this is a small, nice little intimate group. So feel free to just unmute yourself and jump right in. Why did you go to college? I know it's not on a MCAT or anything like that, but I mean, I hope it's not too difficult of a question. Don't be shy. Jump right in, you guys. So why did you choose to go to college?
I think it'll help make my future better with the careers that it opens up for us.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So basically for you, it's about you can have more options in life, okay? I would definitely agree, because those of us that have gone on to college and now have a baccalaureate degree, we can choose to pursue a career that requires a college degree, but we could also pursue a career that doesn't require a college degree, right? Whereas someone who doesn't, obviously they're limited to just those options where a college degree is not required. Okay, very good. I don't think that's the only reason. I have met some people who have other reasons. Perhaps that might be applicable to the rest of you. Anyone else would like to share your reason for going off to college?
I'll just say for my reason, in high school, when I went through AP biology, there's only really so much that you can actually learn and cover. And a lot of it's sort of tailored to the AP test itself. So being able to actually go to college and really understand the wide breadth of topics that are in biology. I think for me, that's my main motivation.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Ashwin. I definitely would agree with you. I would just extrapolate that even more because you focused on just learning and knowing stuff, right? Because in AP biology, unfortunately, a lot of education these days is what do they call it? Teaching to the test, right? When I was a middle school teacher for Los Angeles Unified, it very much felt like we were teaching the students to the test because test scores have become such high stakes. Now, there may not be test scores like a numerical test score, but in higher education, we have something similar, don't we? We have GPAs, and we have, depending on which graduate track you're pursuing, if it's medical school, it would be the MCAT. If it's dental school, it would be the DAT. If it's PhD, a lot of places would want at least a GRE. So there are these things that, sort of is part of the educational process. But what I would challenge all of you is to rethink that college education. That college education isn't just about knowing more stuff. Because if it's merely knowing more stuff, where's my, how do I get more information? Right here. Anybody have one of these? It's called smartphones. And any information that you want, you can literally look it up at your fingertips. So education, I hope all of you that are here and those of you watching this will really sort of take a paradigm shift. You don't want to pursue your education as just getting more information into your head. You really want to approach it as, how do I challenge myself? How do I transform myself into a problem solver, into a collaborative colleague? And of course, we're going to talk about leadership because that's the whole point of this session, talking about leadership. And we'll certainly transition to that, but I wanted to sort of set the stage, if you will, with just looking at your undergrad education, which for some of you, like I said, you're finishing up your education, and then some of you have graduated college like Ashwan and will be transitioning to the graduate school environment. So I just kind of wanted to share that big picture because it's going to help you be that much more effective and make sure that you gain the best and the most that you can out of the time, because time is your most precious resource. I don't think anyone can dispute that because you can't get it back, right? You've already spent about 18 minutes here. Oh my goodness, you can't get that back. But that's why I want to make sure that you all walk away thinking that was a good use of my time, okay? All right, so let's talk about leadership. Leadership is one of those things that I think whether you're looking for a job, right, or you're looking to go and apply to medical school, or for that matter, any graduate program, they're looking for leadership. I know that for students, leadership is probably not in the top 5. It might be, okay, so what do you guys think? Let's use the chat. Let's take full advantage and utilize the tools and resources that we have. Just type in something that you think that admission committees are looking for when they are reviewing applications. What do you think they're looking for? Critical thinking. Ooh, man, you just went for like the toughest answer, but very important answer. That's absolutely correct. They need to know that you are a critical thinker. Integrity. Lily, man, that's awesome because these things that all of you have typed so far, the 2 of you at least, they're things that are, one of them you can kind of teach. The other, integrity, is one of those things that you can role model for others, but you really don't have a very strong control over that, okay? And then teamwork and, oh, perfect. Teamwork and communication. Ashwan, you sound like someone who knows the culture of KGI. All right, so let's start with critical.
I can't type, but I can contribute to this conversation.
Perfect, go for it.
I would say initiative. Obviously, teamwork has already been defined, but also being able to prioritize and reprioritize
Bingo.
And then I guess more or less make sure that the projects that you're doing or the work that you're working towards aligns with your company's goals and objectives, or your own, personal goals and objectives, in order to create a positive work environment for everyone.
Thank you, Beatrice, for that. And I see we have two Beatrices. We have Beatrices, right? We got the plural. That's amazing. Wow, this is some really good stuff. So I don't even know where to begin. So let me just try to address one of these at a time. So critical thinking, critical thinking is one of the things they absolutely want to know in the employees or the graduate students that they will be, admitting into their program. But how do you capture that? That's a challenge, because let's all be honest here and very candid. Just because someone has a high GPA doesn't mean they're a critical thinker, right? I think we can all agree that if you have a high GPA, that means you probably have a pretty good memory, because these days, especially if you're at a large institution like a UC Santa Barbara, UCSD, is Reno pretty big or small, Karen?
It's a pretty big school. It's like 21,000.
Yeah, it's one of two, because UNLV being the other large school in Nevada.
Mhm.
So these large schools, you can't assess student learning with 20-page essays. Like, hey, can you write all the things that you've learned in this course? Can't do it. They have to utilize very quick, efficient, simple. So that's why we have the Scantrons and multiple choice tests. So the critical thinking is certainly something that they are trying to sort of, tease out of an application. Does this person have the critical thinking abilities to be a great asset in our program or company? Okay. So very good with the critical thinking. Integrity, Lily, it is definitely through the letters of recommendation, and it's also through reputation, right? So certain programs and people have a certain reputation, or if we're talking about companies, right? Branding, right? Certain brands have a very, very positive reputation brand. So if I say Coca-Cola or Nike or whatever it might be, just a quick, immediate sort of reaction is either going to be positive or negative. Now, some people might have done their research and find that, hey, this area of the company is doing something that is a little questionable. But again, I'm trying to speak very broadly in terms of integrity. Integrity is one of those things that I remember when I first got into this work of advising students for medical school and all the other graduate health profession. When I first got in, I remember approaching, he was the dean of Stanford School of Medicine. And I asked him, as an advisor, what's like the most important thing that I should know when I'm working with students? And I'm going to share that with you. This is almost 18 years ago that he shared this with me. He said, if it's the science and the academics, we can teach them all that. What we can't teach them is who they are, like integrity, right? And as someone, I've been a faculty who's also taught ethics for about 5 years. I could be the best ethics professor, but that doesn't mean my former students are going to all live an ethical life. Do you guys know what I'm saying? Just because you've taken an ethics course, just because you got an A in the course, doesn't mean you're going to be a person who lives ethically and makes ethical decisions. So integrity through letters of rec, letters of reference. If we're talking about, employment, usually prospective employers want references where they can talk to that person and say, hey, do you know Lily? Hey, how was she when she was with your company? Or how was, Karen when he was one of your student advisees? So very good with the integrity. I mean, they are looking for these things, but it's really hard because it's not easily captured in a single number or a test score. And that's why the admission process is very complex. So for those of you that are familiar, and even if you're not, there's an interview that medical schools and PhD programs will have. Obviously, in the employment world, no one's ever going to get a job offer without an interview, right? If you guys know of any jobs where somebody just, got hired without an interview, let me know. I think the only possible exception might be a job that's remote and you're not interacting with anybody or anyone. then I suppose an interview is not necessary because you can kind of see what they can offer on paper or in these days, a screen. So that might not be an issue, but absolutely important. Teamwork and communication, I think that goes without saying. I mean, we all know, having had even the most smallest short-term jobs and various roles, that we have to work with other people. That's another thing that these admission committees are looking for. That one's difficult because it's one of those things that everyone knows what to say. You guys know what I'm talking about on an application. Oh, I did teamwork. I learned how to collaborate and work well with others. And, you know, it's about listening to people. We all know what to say or what to type. But that's one of those things, again, that the admission committees really, you know, those committees are experts at what they do. They're able to sort of read between the lines, you see. And so they're definitely trying to gauge that. And what Beatrice contributed was prioritization, right? Time management. That one is huge. At least with the medical school deans and directors I work closely with, one of the things that they are always looking for is the judgment of an individual. Do they make sound, wise decisions, or are they just sort of all over the place and they're all, what's the expression? I mean, I don't want the animal rights people upset with me, but chicken without a head. What happens to a chicken whose head is cut off, right? That expression, because the chicken would just run around from one thing to another place to another. And I think if we are honest, and I know I did that when I was undergrad, which was almost 30 years ago. What do I tend to? I have these multiple classes. I have biology, I have chemistry, I have calculus, I have my English course, I have my volunteer, I have my friends, I have my parents, I have to do my laundry, I have to eat. There's just so many different things competing for my attention. So the ability, right, the competency to prioritize is huge. And Beatrice, I can tell, obviously, I saw a couple of young scholars sitting in the back of your car. Being a parent, oh my goodness, you have to be able to prioritize. Let's see. I have my doctoral dissertation that I need to submit by Friday, but I got a sick child. What do I attend to first, right? And I had something very similar like that when I was in grad school, because I did have one kid when I was in my master's, and I had two kids when I was in my doctoral program. So again, how do you prioritize? And these are all qualities and skills that definitely admissions is looking for. And I'm glad we had a chance to at least address a little bit about it, because while it may not be directly in an application for med school, PA school, how is your integrity? Are you a critical thinker? Do you work well in teams? Of course, everyone's going to give the most positive response, but let's dive in and transition right into leadership, because I think leadership is one of those things that a lot of people think they understand, but maybe it's not as clear. And certainly, how do I leverage leadership into my future? Okay. So first off, those of us that can, let's go ahead and type in, what is leadership? Let's always start with a good working definition. What is leadership? To lead other people. What is leadership? Leadership is the ability to make a group of people excited and encouraged to achieve a goal. I like that. You know, you guys remember scalar and vector from physics? Come on, anyone who's taking some basic science course. Yes, so it's very much a vector here, because he's talking about direction. There's a directionality to where you're going to take these people. Okay. Excited, encouraged. Okay. Inspirational leadership, motivational leadership. There's different types. There's so many theories of leadership out there. Certainly, there's one through interpersonal relationship that you're able to motivate the people. Okay. What else? So it's leading people, making sure everyone is successful, included and guiding towards a common goal. So I see goal popping up in almost every single one of your definitions. Help your team succeed, train and build their skills. Okay. One of the most difficult things is to think more broadly and generically. I think those of us that, especially that have studied science, we have been conditioned to really analyze things, right? What's the difference between analysis and synthesis? You can unmute yourself. That one you don't want to type. It might be a little more complex. So just unmute yourself. What's the difference between analysis and synthesis? A crude difference.
I'd say analysis is kind of like breaking down an idea, and synthesis is combining like multiple things.
Very good, very good. It's sort of the yin and yang. It's the opposite, right? Most students are very good at analyzing. Colleges, I think, do an excellent job of helping students to analyze. I'm not quite sure there are as many opportunities for students to synthesize, although that is basically what the entire college education really is about, is to synthesize all the things you've been learning. If you're a science major, I guarantee you, you have taken a few, or maybe hopefully a handful of non-science classes. Now, those non-science classes, I hope you didn't see them as, oh, just a waste of time, and you only want to take science classes. Because the reality is, if you are truly open-minded, you're going to be able to make connections between those humanities classes, sociology, psychology classes, and you can actually synthesize that there are commonalities and connections between those disparate areas of discipline, okay? So synthesis is reproducing results. So it is, again, yes, bringing things together, and then you can present if if the circumstances permit. So why are we talking about analysis and synthesis? It's important because as a leader, I would argue that synthesizing is much more important than analyzing. Analyzing usually in practice is about identifying problems, right? It's like, here's a problem here. This is what's going on. Now, that's good. I mean, no one's going to dispute the validity of identifying and analyzing a problem. I think we would all agree that that's a very important skill set. But I would just go further to say that, in order to truly be a good leader, you have to be so multi-talented. I mean, it's one of the reasons why leadership is such a premium, okay? I don't know if you all heard, CEOs in America, they get compensated pretty well, right? Now, some of you might have your own personal opinion about whether that's right or wrong, but if we think about leaders, let's say, Nathan and I, we love basketball. So, in basketball, if you are a player that can, to use your definition, you're a player who can make a group of other players excited and encouraged working towards a common goal, don't you think that is valuable? That it's worth paying someone a lot of money, even if it's millions of dollars, because that's what they can do? Absolutely. So leadership is one of those things that I think we have this very vague idea of what it means to be a leader, move them towards a common goal, but it's much more multifaceted. So let's start with some of the most important tenets of leadership. Before you can influence others, what must you be able to do? Lead who before you lead others? Kind of a setup question, but I hope you guys know where I'm getting at. Who must you lead before you lead others? Maybe some of our audience here, they're hungry like I am, Nathan. There you go. I knew you guys knew it. It's just their blood sugar levels dropping. They need to get something to eat, but they're here with us. Yes, you need to lead yourself. And what does that mean? Well, I think this is a very overly simplified, but hopefully a helpful way to think about it. Self-regulation is one of those ways that you can really demonstrate your ability to lead yourself. And what do I mean by self-regulation? Well, can you control your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, obviously, your behavior? Is that something that you have a strong self-discipline? Or are you an individual who's struggling with that, right? And that's not the, I mean, there's nobody out there who has 100% mastery of their emotions, their cognition. I mean, that's just not realistic. But I think we can all agree that a leader is someone who needs to have composure, needs to be able to sometimes keep their emotions in check. There are certain decorums and ways you conduct yourself in a professional setting. And so a leader is someone who has, you know, I'm going to use the Star Wars, right? I mean, I haven't watched all the new episodes, but someone who's watched the original 1970s version, you know, the, what is it, episode 4, 5, 6. I know enough to use it as a reference here, that if you are a true leader who's really been building up and refining your leadership, you are like a Jedi master. You have really garnered control of the force. You use the force to do good, as opposed to the force controlling you and your emotion, right? Because that's what the dark side does. Come over to the dark side and use that hate and anger. So the emotion isn't necessarily controlling you. You have that self-regulatory ability to control your thoughts and cognition. So as a leader, you are able to lead yourself. And once you have that sort of under your belt and you can predict and sort of manage that, now you are ready to move on to others. One of the things that will kill leadership is hypocrisy. When you are a hypocrite, for example, those of you that have kids, if you tell your kids no sweets before dinner, but you yourself have a piece of chocolate in your mouth while you're cooking dinner, the kids are going to notice that. Whoa, wait a minute, Mom, Dad, you know, what happened to no, you know, desserts before dinner? We eat after dinner. So, you know, hypocrisy is one of those sort of kryptonites for leaders. And so, you know, leadership, I think, is one of those things that very frequently, when we study leadership, it's like a how to be a leader. Well, you need to listen to people. You need to put others before yourself. I mean, we have this like laundry list of what to do, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? They think that leadership is about doing stuff. And let me tie this to application to med school, or even job applications, although job application is a little different. So maybe I'll have to come back for that. But in terms of applying to graduate health professions, they ask you, what extracurricular activities have you done? Right? You guys know what I'm talking. Even high school to undergrad college, they don't just ask you for your SAT, ACT score, GPA. They ask you, what extracurricular activities have you done? Have you volunteered? Have you played sports? Were you the president of the chess club, right? They want to know what you've done outside of the classroom. Well, why do they ask that? And this is where, again, kind of like what we talked about earlier, they want to get at critical thinking, integrity, and your ability to work with others, but they can't get to that in a very, you know, simple way. So they have to sort of maneuver and get around and read sort of beyond just what's written in the application. So what that would mean is these extracurricular activities reveal your priorities, just like what Beatrice said, because time is your most precious resource. So when they see you've spent so many hundreds, if not thousands of hours volunteering, oh, wow, this is an altruistic person. If they see that you've spent, you know, hundreds of hours over in athletics, well, and they also pay attention to what sport it is. Is it an individual sport or is it a team sport? So again, it's like they're detectives. When they review applications, from the student's perspective, it might just seem like entering in, just answering questions, but you always have to keep in mind that they're reading basically and creating a narrative, a biography of who you are. So, wow, this person is on a team sport, okay? I can reasonably infer that this is someone who knows how to work well with others. And so again, that's why when students say, you know, I'm on a team sport, it's not even D1, you know, competitive sport. It's just intramural. It's okay, because again, that's what you think in your mind, but in their minds, this is clear evidence of a person's ability to interact and work with others. So going back to the extracurricular activities, I know from your perspective, you feel like you need to put a lot of things there, you know. Well, there's 15 slots for AMCAS, which is the medical school application system. I feel like I should fill them all up, or at least 12 or 13. That's not true. In fact, these admission committee members are very, very skeptical about the motives behind these extracurricular activities. You guys know what I'm talking about? When they see that all these extracurricular activities were performed, they really can't know with a great deal of certainty whether you did it because you wanted to, because you genuinely wanted to volunteer at the senior living home, or you did it because you thought that was the secret to getting into med school, right? So right now, and for just as long as I can remember, a lot of students that are interested in continuing on for med school, let's say, they're thinking, okay, what do I need to do? And they'll go to their advisor and say, can you tell me what to do? And some advisors who work with many, many students, like the larger UC, Cal States, and other large universities, they don't have the bandwidth or the time to really explain the little nuances and details. They'll say, yes, you need to do extracurricular activities. You need to do things that will show them you're a kind, giving, loving person. Okay, which is not inaccurate, but it's not the whole picture. So what I would further contribute to that answer is you have to demonstrate a genuine, authentic commitment to serve, which means that you really want to lean towards depth more than breadth. So it's not the number of activities that you've done, but it truly is a focused compassion for what you really care about. So one of the expressions that all of you have heard, what's the secret to getting in? Do something you're passionate about. I know all of you have heard it, okay? What does that mean? Well, tell me what it is and I'll do it, right? That's like the total pre-med student is, research, I hate research, but if that's what I need to do, I'll do it. Where do I sign up, right? That is not the approach that you all want to take, because that's not how it works. And it's actually going to be counterproductive. It's actually going to backfire. When I used to work at a school before KGI, I worked at University of Southern California. Some of you might have heard of it. I had a student who came in and shared her resume with me. And so I looked over her resume. It was like 3 pages long, very impressive. There must have been at least 7 publications, research papers. And then so I told the student, you're good to go. Any PhD program would be so lucky to have you. And her face just dropped. What? PhD? I'm applying med school. And so I have to tell her the difficult news that, you know what, when I looked at your resume, it's not telling me anything about interest in medicine or clinical or anything that involves patients. It's just screaming, you'll love research. You love finding answers to questions and discovering new knowledge and adding to the human, knowledge base. So there was a big disconnect, a incongruence. So going back to those extracurricular activities, they ask you what you've done, but what they're really trying to figure out is, who are you? Okay, not what you've done, but who are you? Or said in a nice little, maybe a proverb or a bumper sticker meme, it's not what you do, but it's who you are. Okay, it's not what you do, it's who you are. If you do kind things, doesn't mean you're a kind person. Okay, I know that sounds weird, but what if you're doing kind things? Aren't you a kind person? Those of you that are at least 20 years or older, people have ulterior motives. They will do kind things because they want something from you. So in this case, if you're a pre-med applicant, you've done all these kind things and volunteered and feed the homeless and all because you want to get in. So again, it has to be something that you can convey a authenticity, and we can talk about that as well. I mean, again, there's just so much to cover here, but I got to keep bringing myself back to that leadership. Leadership is one of those things that if you are applying to med school because you want to be a physician, that needs to be very clearly integrated into your candidacy, into your application. Because if you simply say, I want to help people, I love just the human body and just the amazing, science of the human body. I like the clinical setting. I love working with other healthcare professionals. That's what I want to do. That's not quite cutting it for med school, because what you just described is good for PA. And I know, Beatrice, you know about PAs, nurse practitioners, pharmacists, dentists. I mean, those all interact very closely with patients in a team setting in a clinical environment. So what is the difference? It's leadership. Okay. Now, some of it almost seems contradictory. Like, wait a minute, I thought you said, like, a leader can be pretty much anybody who's able to influence others towards a common goal. That is still true. But in practice, though, who's the one person that is the first person that a patient goes to, and that person serves as the primary point of care? Because that person also has the authority and the expertise to refer to various individuals. That person is the primary care physician. It is the physician that serves as sort of the main contact point. Even when the patient is working with the nurse, the doctor is always consulted, aren't they? Well, let me talk to the doctor. The nurse will say, I think this is what you need to take, and here's the dosage, but let me consult with the doctor. Now the doctor
contribute to this conversation.
Right.
So the reason that I had dropped off my kids at my parents' house is my mom had a visit with a pulmonologist. She was hospitalized over the weekend and was released on Monday. And so this was a follow-up visit.
Yeah.
And when you talk about leadership and just how they set the stage for the culture, even though this is a pulmonologist, he's a specialist, obviously we're going to send notes to the PCP. His office, I've been in many doctors' office. My mom has a lot of chronic conditions. And his office, the staff was pleasant. They were organized. They communicated well with each other. He communicated well with the pharmacy. I had an issue with, getting pre-authorization for recommended medication. And he took the burden on. He was like, I can handle it. It's just a matter of getting the correct authorization code. And so that truly made for a wonderful experience. Like, we were in and out of there in a very time efficient manner. And that makes a huge difference when seeing a specialist or provider of any kind versus, a provider whose office is difficult to schedule with, who is having issues with the back staff. And there's no leadership, to set the stage and take charge of that situation. And that tension carries over because a lot of it is customer service, right? And so that tension carries over. When I said, I understand, like, we've been down this road, he took my word for it. He trusted me. And there have been a lot of other instances in which a provider is like dismissive of like the patient's or the patient's knowledge. And I understand that not all of the patients, are up to date or well-versed in their medical conditions or even their medications, but just to have that was like a breath of fresh air. And so when you talk about like all the different qualities that make for an efficient provider, like an effective provider, and what leadership looks like, as opposed to, paying lip service to it. Like, I thought that was an excellent experience, and like an excellent illustration of what good, effective leadership looks like, from the provider, because it starts with them. It's their license, their practice, they're hiring the business manager, they're trusting that their business manager is then hiring the correct staff, that their books are handled accordingly, that all of the license, all of the insurance information is seamless and transparent on my end. And that's how it should be. Like, I should only see the EOBs at the end of it. I should only have to pick up medications instead of have to do the back and forth. I handle that because, unfortunately, not all providers are equally effective.
Sure.
But it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, I think I noticed everyone was just sort of nodding their heads because they knew exactly what you were talking about, Beatrice. And again, going back to sort of the value of the leadership, I mean, this is why when you are a leader in a sports team, for example, you're probably going to get paid with the biggest, fattest contract. When you are a leader, and again, I know that sometimes people will say, like, for example, when I say leader in football, what are you guys thinking? What position are you thinking? Be honest. Quarterback, if you're honest, quarterback, and then those of you that don't know soccer, it's okay, or football. I mean, like in soccer, I don't know who's the leader. The only way I know is I believe there's a letter C on their jersey, so you know they're the captain. But all of this to say that just because a quarterback is perceived as the leader is not necessarily the case. Same thing with, because when I asked this question in our class, so Ashwin, so we have a class for post-bac students where we talk about all these things, preparing you guys for med school application. And I asked, is it the best player on a team? And students would, some of them would say yes. And then there's always a handful of students who would say not necessarily. Sometimes the leader on a team is not the best performer. And I said, well, can you give me an example? Because it's all about evidence-based. Can you give me an example of that? And so a student said, well, for example, in basketball, sometimes the leader of that team is a veteran player who's not even in the starting lineup. They come off the bench, but they yet carry sort of that burden or the cohesive gel that really keeps the team together. And of course, we talked earlier about just sort of the emotional encouragement aspect of it. So basically, leadership in its most simplest form is influencing others. It's two words. It's influencing others. Humans are social beings. We influence each other whether we are aware of it or not. We influence each other in a positive way or a negative way, or sometimes I guess we could say it's neutral. There's no net effect, but it's this tremendous opportunity that we have to influence other people. So leadership is one of those things that they are looking for so closely in your application. Now, the mistake a lot of students make is they think they can achieve that goal by becoming the president of a club or the chair of some committee. Those are just leadership in title only. And it's one of the reasons why when they have, so those of you that are familiar, med school has a section where not only do you have all the extracurricular activities that you've done, you get to choose which of those three are most meaningful to you. And that you get more characters to elaborate and talk about why it's meaningful for you. And so when I'm working with our post-bac students at KGI, I tell them, don't choose the one that you think is going to be impressive to them. Choose the one that really was meaningful for you. Why was it meaningful for you? Because sometimes students might choose something because they had a cool title, right? You got this fancy title, it just sounds impressive. But the truth of the matter is that that is not very influential in the minds of the admission committees, because those titles, they see those all the time. What they're going to go for is try to decipher what type of things were you involved in? How did you influence others? Right now, we're living in a time where everything is community-based. We're really interested in community. If you are going off to college, they have learning communities. They have housing, dorm communities. Everything's in communities because it's very evident, even from the data and the research, that community is that sort of psychosocial connection to other people. And there's a great deal of healing and mental health and wellness that comes from being part of a community. When you look at individuals who are unhealthy, they're usually isolated. They're usually probably suffering with depression and disconnection because they lack membership in a community. So this sort of leadership, think of it in terms of how can you convey sort of your involvement. And one of those coolest things about leadership is it's like the more you try not to be a leader, the more you try to be humble, the more people see you as a leader. Does that make sense? And it's this paradox. And if a person tries to be more of a leader, it's very off-putting and people don't want to follow. It's like so it's this exact paradox of the more you try to be a leader and try to lead people, it has the opposite effect. And so this is why one of the best ways, I mean, if I had to sort of identify one to do is to, and I saw it, have grace, extend grace to others, love people. When you encourage people, you love people, you listen to people, you just treat others and put them before yourself. That is a huge, powerful way to influence other people. So to bring it all the way back, because I see we're running out of time here, when you are applying for med school or any graduate health profession program, because health profession is about the patients. It's not about your desire to be the #1 plastic surgeon in the country. It's not to get the highly specialized residency that you want. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having those ambitions, but the way this process is set up and the way it works is they're really trying to decipher your leadership, your desire to influence others, and have you had success leading others? Because you know, a med school is a place where a great deal of the benefit of the learning, the community is directly from the students themselves. I know faculty and administrators probably don't want to hear it, but I'm sorry. I mean, that's how I honestly believe and feel that the value of the learning experience is the collegiality amongst the learners, the students. So another way that you can think about it is, you guys know potluck parties? Everybody knows potluck parties, right? You bring something, everybody brings something. Start thinking about, what do you have to offer? What do you bring to a potluck party? If it's literally, you know, for me, it would be like Korean barbecue or something like that. I'm Korean, so I'll bring some Korean dish. But if I'm talking, you know, figuratively about what can I bring, I would say encouragement. I love to encourage other people. And that's one of the reasons why I got into education as a teacher, is to encourage. So think about and know yourself, and then integrate that into your application. Same thing for if you were applying for a job, you obviously want to capture your skills and your competencies and how those line up with the goals of that company. If you are an avid carnivore like I am, I don't think I would fit in well with a vegan company, Impossible Burger Company, or anything like that. Okay, so it's the same thing. If you are interested in, let's say, research, you would be applying to research-focused medical schools. If you're interested in working with the underserved, you would be applying to underserved or medical schools that work and focus on underserved. I saw Brussels sprout. I love, you know, what's crazy is my kids love Brussels sprouts, and we introduced that into their diets very early. And so we have family and friends, they think we're paying them to eat Brussels sprouts and broccoli, but it's all about getting it to them early. And then, you know, we give them fun names, like a broccoli is a miniature tree or bush. And the kids were like, oh, that's so cool. And then we would give them cauliflower and say, that's an albino broccoli. So you just have fun with it, and kids will develop good habits. So anyhow, what a wonderful way to spend time together. I hope all of you found just at least one thing helpful that you can take away and integrate into your life. Let me type in my email. If any of you guys have any further questions, or you just want to get together over coffee in Claremont Village, I'm more than happy to do so. Ashwin, I'll see you, I guess. There's a new incoming student ice cream social next Friday. And then I believe there's usually a barbecue lunch with incoming students in the summer sometime. So we have multiple opportunities to connect. The rest of you guys, you know, like, oh, Kieran, one of the things I was going to tell you about Reno, the Reno Medical School is extremely mission focused. So because you're a Nevada resident, you should definitely apply to UNLV and the medical school up in Reno, because they're very strongly committed. Unfortunately, a lot of California students don't know that, and they're, you know, well, I'll apply to Nevada med schools because it's close by. Mission focused medical schools, you got to know all these little details and nuances. All right, thank you for that. Our summer barbecue will be July 28th. And again, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting all of you. What tremendous dedication to allocate your summer for taking, you know, participating in these programs. Speaking of these programs, which program are all of you participating in? Go ahead and type it in the chat. Is it B Suite? Is it, what else do we got going on? SURE, the summer undergraduate research. I mean, we have something like 20 summer programs, undergraduate summer class. Oh, cool. So Beatrice, what summer class are you taking? Oh, CBB too.
I'm taking two. I'm taking biochemistry and genetics.
And genetics, got it. Okay. Because for PA school, you need to have anatomy and physiology and microbiome. So sometimes those are some popular classes too. And then clinical genetic bioinformatics, very nice. So, you know, KGI's genetic counseling program, that's one of those jobs that didn't exist when I was in school. So very cool. All right, I think in CCB, all these letters, CGB, which one is CCB? Is that bioprocessing? No.
CBB is careers beyond the bench. I'm not sure what
Got
CCB
it.
is.
So industry, got it. Yeah, and see, that's the other cool thing about the post-bac program I lead is the students, if they don't get into med school, they go work for a biotech company. And it's the coolest thing. And I have such a peaceful sleep at night knowing that our students, after investing in their education, they either would have gone on to med school or they go get a job. In fact, I just spoke to one of our former students, Daniel. He didn't do too hot on his NCAT, but he's working for Amgen and he's doing just fine. He rolled up in his black, brand new Tesla. I mean, I don't even have a Tesla. What is going on with that? But anyhow, have a wonderful rest of the day, you guys, and the rest of your program at KGI. Again, I shared my email with you. If there's any way I can be of help, whether it's, you know, for grad school in general or for med school, that's my area of specialty. I also work with students who want to go into PA as well as any other health graduate programs like pharmacy and dental. So, all right. Thanks, Nathan, for setting this up. Amazing.
Thank you, Dr. Tim.
Yep.
Appreciate the time and thank you, everyone. And like Dr. Tim mentioned, please email him, take advantage of his offer, see him at the village. And I left my email too, if anyone's interested in our fall program, either this fall or next, we'd be happy to help you work through that process. But have a great afternoon. Thank you again for the time.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.